Have you heard of Daniel's story in the lion's grave? Get ready to know the faith that has not doubled. Hey guys, today I will tell an incredible story of the Bible, present in the book of Daniel. This is the exciting account of how Daniel faced the lion's grave without losing faith. Let's dive into this exciting narrative together. Daniel, lived in the glorious city of Babylon, dominated by a great empire. From a young age, I was separated to serve in the royal palace of Nebuchadnezzar, a powerful and dreaded king. Despite the temptations and pressures around me, I kept my faith firmly in the God of Israel. With your guidance, I became known for my wisdom and fidelity. My reputation surpassed borders and aroused admiration between the sages and counselors of the kingdom. That was my life before the great proof. I was about to face the lion's pit. Daniel's cunning enemies, driven by envy and thirst for power, elaborated a treacherous plan to make me disobey the royal decree that prohibited prayers to any being other than the king himself. They knew of my righteousness and faithfulness to the God of Israel, and saw in this an opportunity to make me disgrace before the king. They set up a cruel ambush, watching myself carefully as I proceeded with my daily prayer routine toward Jerusalem, as I always did since my youth. As they entered the enclosure and surprised me before my sacred moment with the Lord, they did not hesitate to immediately report to King Darius. The situation became tense, and soon I was sentenced to the terrible grave of lions, thus facing one of the biggest challenges of my life, keeping me true to my God even before the hungry claws of these wild beasts. At that time, Daniel, was already used to facing constant challenges and tests of my faith. Even in the face of the decree that prohibited prayers to any being that was not the king, I did not hesitate. Still, I continued following my daily prayer routine for Jerusalem as a visible sign of my unshakable devotion to the God of Israel. Each moment dedicated to communion with the Lord was a source of strength and spiritual renewal in the hostile environment full of the dangers of the royal palace. Understanding the importance of this habit in my life supported me in difficult times and strengthened my connection with the divine. Therefore, that fateful day when I was denounced for maintaining my faithfulness to God above all, I faced the consequences with courage and confidence in the power of the Most High. Sentenced to the lion's grave, I was taken by the king's guards amid a frightened crowd that cried for my release. With each step taken toward that terrible sentence, I could feel the weight of injustice by pressing my shoulders, but my trust remained firmly anchored in divine providence. Arriving at the scene of the sentence, I was able to contemplate the shadowy depth of the pit that housed the hungry beasts, whose sharp claws and voracious looks indicated a dark destination. I was launched without mercy inside the abyss, where the roar of the lions echoed deafening, echoing the fatal challenge that awaited me. In that moment of anguish and loneliness, I cried to my God for protection and trusted that His powerful hand would be with myself in the deepest darkness. So I waited resigned to the unfolding of events, certainly knowing that nothing was out of the sovereign control of the one who knew me from my mother's womb. That night, King Darius was restless in his royal bed. Concerns and questions invaded his mind, leaving him agitated and disturbed. What would have happened to Daniel? Does your sentence in the lion's pit was already performed? Unable to contain the affliction that took care of himself, I decided to get up even before dawn. Disregarding the convenience of his luxurious bed, he quickly put on his royal robes and hurried toward the grave where Daniel had been confined. His steps resonated in the empty corridors of the palace, while anxiety increased every moment. Arriving at the sentence site, a mixture of fear and hope took over his heart. As he glimpsed the inside of the grave, an unbelievable view turned out to his astonished eyes. Daniel was saved in the middle of the lions, unscathed before the wrath of the hungry beasts, a manifest miracle in the eyes of the conflicted and surprised king. At that moment, Darius was able to witness in flesh and bone the divine protection over his faithful servant, experiencing an indescribable sense of admiration mixed with reverence before the power of the living God. As I remained in the lion's grave, surrounded by darkness and the threatening roar of the hungry beasts, I could feel a supernatural calm invade my being. My heart, though anxious, remained firm in the confidence that the God to whom he is able to perform miracles. And that's exactly what happened. Sending an angel in my help, the Lord stopped the voracious mouth of the lions. Instead of seeing in me a helpless prey, those fierce animals contemplated the divine presence around me. The miracle unfolded before my eyes, and I knew it was safe in the arms of the Most High. The time I spent on that dark grave was a true testimony of the power and protection of my faithful God. While I was in the lion's grave, surrounded by darkness and the frightening roar of the hungry beasts, my legs were shaking with fear, but my heart clinging firmly to hope. Suddenly, an intense glow illuminated the dark atmosphere, and an angel of the Lord appeared before me. His eyes sparkled with a divine glow, bringing with them indescribable peace. In a soft, powerful movement, he closed the mouth of the voracious lions. Faced with this undisputed miracle, I felt the tears sprout in my eyes, not of fear, but of gratitude. I understood at that moment that I was not alone, that the God whom I serve was real and powerful. The lions, instead of seeing in me an easy prey, recognized the majestic presence of the Most High and prostrated themselves before him. That moment in the lion's grave was more than a proof of survival. It was a living testimony of the faithfulness and mercy of my Almighty Lord. While I, Daniel, waited in the lion's grave for the unfolding of events after the decree of King Darius, who condemned me to the cruel sentence, I was able to witness a surprising episode. King Darius himself, touched by the miracle of my preservation before the hungry beasts, proclaimed before the kingdom the supremacy and the power of the living God, the God of Israel. His voice echoed through the corridors of the royal palace, calling subjects and servants to reverence and fear the one who had performed an unparalleled wondering in my favor. His eyes, once full of doubts and concerns, now shone with the light of renewed faith. Determined to exalt divine greatness among men and kingdoms of the earth, he issued a new decree that proclaimed the God of Israel as worthy of worship and reverence for all eternity. Not only did this moment mark my miraculous liberation from the lion's grave, but it also served as a living testimony of the transforming power of faith in the face of the most severe adversities. In the lion's grave, surrounded by darkness and the threatening roar of hungry beasts, my faith was put to the test unparalleled. Amid the fear that threatened to dominate my heart, I decided to turn to the God of Israel, the source of all my strength and hope. Every moment in that dark abyss was like an eternity, where the uncertainty of what was to come hovered over me like a dense shadow. However, even in the face of imminent death, I kept firm in my conviction that the Lord would not abandon me. And he didn't leave. When I felt weaker and more helpless, I saw his powerful hand to act in my favor. An angel of the Lord came to me, bringing with him the peace and comfort that only the divine can offer. Faced with the heavenly presence in that grave of perdition, the voracious beasts prostrated themselves into reverence for the living God who was with me. I was spared from fatal destiny thanks to my unshakable faith and divine mercy that covered me like a protective cloak. This striking experience further strengthened my confidence in the Almighty Lord, revealing his incomparable faithfulness even at the darkest moments of life. In the lion's grave, surrounded by the darkness that seemed to swallow me all the way, I could feel the warm breath of the hungry beasts hovering at me. My heart was beating out, the muscles contracted by the fear of imminent death. But in the midst of the desperation that threatened to dominate me, a flame of hope was lit within me. I remembered the sacred words that accompanied me throughout life: "He who trusts in the Lord will never be shaken." It was at this moment of complete surrender and absolute confidence in the Almighty God that I experienced the divine presence in a tangible way. An angel emerged before me, emanating a heavenly light that contrasted with the darkness of the grave. His eyes overflowed with kindness, and his touch was soft like a comforting breeze. In a majestic gesture, he closed the voracious jaws of the lions. Faced with that miraculous scenario, I deeply understood the truth contained in the ancient promise: God is with us in times of distress, and his protection is unshakable. In the lion's grave, I experienced the transforming power of faith that does not bend in the face of the most terrible adversities. And so I was unharmed from that trial, strengthened in the certainty that the Lord is my safe haven in the storm. Did you like this fascinating story? Leave in the comments which other biblical account you would like to see here on the channel. I hope you enjoyed this special video about Daniel in the lion's pit. Don't forget to leave, share with friends, and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Until the next video, may God bless you.